Hi, I'm excited to be
Hi,
here.
Ben. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think your session starts now. You can go ahead and commence the session.
Okay. So we have three of the panelists here on Zoom. Are any of the panelists there in person?
Yeah, we have one, Bankole, right? As starting. Minus 323 or something.
So, so we'll get started, David?
Absolutely, you can go ahead and start.
Yeah. Okay, great. So good morning, everyone here on Zoom and in Lagos at the conference. Sorry not to be there with you all this year, there last year. My name is Ben Mendelsohn. I am an assistant professor of film and digital culture at Portland State, Portland, Oregon, on the West Coast. So we were all just talking about what our local time is in our various locations. It's 3 a.m. here, but I'm going to do my best to be peppy. Can you hear us, David?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry, I'm having a network glitches, but I can hear you now. Internet
Okay. Okay. Great. So, so I think what we should begin with.
The internet is fine. No, it's not fine. It's checking.
Yeah, I can click on you and start. Can hear me?
Yep, can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay,
We have
so
people in
we'll
Boston.
continue.
Yeah, we have many people in Boston, so they can hear you.
Okay. So maybe can you mute your microphone, David? Thank you. So we have five panelists, or maybe we'll only have four. So Abisola, Yetunde, is Ifeoma's not in the room with you all? Just Bankole?
No, I'm not sure how people
No,
are in this one.
Ifeoma. Okay, welcome back. I think maybe what would be best to begin with would be for our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about where you're studying and what you're studying. Just give us a little bit of background, and then we can address the questions on the program one by one, and take questions from folks in attendance in the room, and try and be as useful as possible to folks who are interested in studying in the U.S. and provide whatever information we can. Abisola, you're first on the program. Why don't we start with you?
Oh, thank you. My name is Abisola Akinshiku, and I'm a third year PhD student here at the University of Kansas, KU. And I think that's me. Thank you.
Great. So Yetunde?
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Yetunde Labede, and I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. And basically, my research has to do with language practices of Nigerian immigrant families and Nigerian diaspora, thinking about how the school and the community and family work together for the children's holistic development. Thank you.
Wonderful. Hi, Ifeoma. Would you like to introduce yourself? They've stepped, they've stepped away for a moment. Um, Uncle A. Uncle A, could you introduce yourself to?
Hi everyone, my name is Bankole Wright. I am a fourth-year PhD candidate at Florida International University. I'm a sociocultural anthropologist studying street life, and I'm trying to understand how people perform the streets within various urban contexts and circumstances. And I'm currently on my ethnographic field work. So yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Wow. So much wonderful research on the panel. Wish we were talking about that too. And then Umar.
Yes, my name is Umar Aminu Endaki. I just completed my second year at Northwestern University. I study African history with the Department of History, and I'm looking at material culture of urban spaces in Muslim northern Nigeria.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for sharing a bit about yourselves. So we could I'll sort of see how long things are taking if we go kind of question by question from the program, or choose to kind of group some questions together, not have everybody address all of them. But I think it would be helpful to begin, maybe if all of our panelists could share a little bit about your own experience applying for graduate school, how you decided to study in the United States, and what your experience was sort of applying, preparing to apply, and applying. Just a bit of background on your own experience with the process. Abisola, can I start with you again?
Okay, sure. Um, for me, I did my master's at Southern Illinois University in 2019. I started, and I came back in 2022 to do my PhD, right? So, how I found university, a friend of mine told me about Southern Illinois, and I decided to apply because there are funds that I was qualified to apply for, even as an international student. And it wasn't even the graduate assistantship thing. It was a graduate research assistantship, and it was some kind of special fund that they have for emerging scholars who already know what they want to work on, like a project, because the fund demanded that I should write a proposal. And the proposal, I was shocked that the proposal was not even a 10-page thing. It was just a page of good proposal. And I had to reach out to a professor at the university who would accept to mentor me. And if I have both, I have my proposal, then I have somebody at the university who has accepted to mentor me, then I'm qualified to apply for that fund, plus all of my other things that I need to do, SOP and the rest. So, but for my second degree, which is my PhD this time, that professor I worked with at Southern Illinois, Professor Ransby, he recommended this university to me, and I decided to come. So that's my story.
Great. I'm back. Abisola, for your master's degree, you found a mentor, and before you applied, um, you were corresponding with them and getting their support for your
Yes.
application to the master's program.
Yes.
Um, which doesn't always happen for master's degrees.
Yes.
um, but maybe is more likely to happen when there's a program that has funding and support for students. But that might be an important distinction for us to make for prospective students. Some of the differences between applications for master's programs as opposed to PhD programs. And while it's pretty common for a prospective PhD student to be doing outreach to potential faculty members and sort of soliciting their support for your application beforehand, or even just putting out feelers. That doesn't always happen for master's programs in the humanities and social
Yeah.
sciences. Yeah. Um, Great. Yetunde, you want to share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. So, maybe just like Abisola, I started with master's program too. But before my master's, I was in the US as a Fulbright foreign language teaching assistant, where I came to teach Yoruba language at Fayetteville State University, North Carolina. And while there, so because we have large body of students that are also Fulbright scholars that have done it, so we have this network, and they suggested different schools. But one thing that really stood out to me then was their suggestion, like, okay, you want to try to do TOEFL, or you want to try to do GRE to make you more competitive. I know those are waived now. So I did all those, and I applied to about 6 or 7 schools based on where past FLTA. So FLTA is the Foreign Language Teaching Assistant, where they've been, including Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. And well, while I got acceptance, I was also doing something similar to what Abisola did. But for me, they were actually asking me what I could do. And as a linguist and an educator, so I was able to tell them, yes, I was teaching English in Nigeria. I could do this, I could do that. But one thing about my master's program is just because of the pocket of, what's it called, admission that I got, I was leveraging on that to bargain scholarships, to bargain assistantships. Like Edwardsville already sent all their things. I ended up at Bowling Green State University in Ohio, and I did cross-cultural and international education. But I ended up there because I told them I got this, and they were able to like give me higher. So that was what I did. And it was from there, just like I did for my master's, asking people for school.
Every room. They switch into room. Okay, great.
Can you hear
Yeah.
us now?
Yep, please continue.
Yeah, so I finished my master's in 2021, but I started application again in 2020 based on, I still leverage the FLTA people and all their recommendations, like who applied to this and everything. But I thought one thing that is interesting about the PhD was the particular department that I would have loved here at MSU is the second language studies. But in meeting with the potential supervisor, he was like, yes, we would want to hear, but like, you are not competitive for this very department. And we feel you are not a strong candidate, and I would suggest you apply to the teacher education. And I think that's really helped. And it's just because I've been in education and probably adding more to that. So that's how I got to doing my teacher education PhD here at Michigan State. But like I bargained at Bowling Green and SIU and other schools, I did that as well at Michigan State, doing that with Michigan State and University of Wisconsin-Madison, whoever have the largest money for summer and the full funding and everything. And yeah, that's my journey so far.
So you negotiated a little bit with your PhD offer as well, is
Oh
what you're
yeah.
and what specifically were they willing to or able to provide you more resources for?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. One, I negotiated regarding childcare because it is so important to me. That is one. So schools that it's not just having the childcare available, but what do you have for student parents? And what scholarships do you have for the kids? So MSU was offering like paying for 3 days a week. And also I can bring my child to class. And that is important to me because I cannot separate myself from being a student parent. And that is also part of my scholarship. So that is one. Then another thing is in terms of the funding. So Michigan State were offering 5 years full funding, including graduate assistantship, and I can apply for summer research fellowship. While I got admission at Bowling Green too, they were offering 5, but nothing about summer, and I wasn't convinced about the childcare. Then we
Aí desligamos ele.
from Ohio to Wisconsin. While that feels really good, I felt that is a one-time thing. As at the time, Wisconsin was offering me 5,000, Michigan State was offering me 2,000 moving allowance. And Michigan is closer to Ohio. So what I did with Michigan was, hey, yes, you are giving me childcare, you are giving me this, but a particular school is offering me 5,000 moving in allowance. What do you want to do if you really want me? Then they were like, okay, don't worry. Then they gave me a second check. So they gave me additional 2,000, which makes it 4,000. Yes, it is less than the 5,000 Wisconsin is offering, but they are giving me 5 years full funding. I'm not sure I really have the energy of reapplying for graduate assistantship. So that's why I chose MSU, and even looking at their program. So teacher education program that I'm in now has been the best in the United States for the past 30 something years, especially their elementary and secondary education, which I feel is really, really important, especially if I want to consider coming back to Nigeria to be a consultant or anything that has to do with education. So those are the things I negotiated.
Yeah, wonderful. So for our attendees thinking about graduate school, it's really helpful to emphasize that negotiation is possible at the stage before if you've been admitted to multiple places, um, and but then it's also really important to be kind of specific and realistic about what is negotiable. It's my understanding that for the most part, the stipend levels, which is the equivalent of of your salary as a PhD student, is very rarely negotiable in and of itself. That the universities, if other people have had different experiences, we should share that. But it's my experience that kind of either the department or the particular college. Sometimes I think they're standardized even across universities, set an amount. Um, so when I did my PhD in media culture and communication at NYU, I finished in 2018. And I think by the time I was finishing, they had standardized them in that particular sub college at like $35,000. And then you would earn additional money by teaching or TAing at a rate that was set by the contract with the graduate student union. Um, but everything you Tunde is sharing, it seems super, super useful in thinking about smaller pots of money that you can ask for, moving expenses, determining what's guaranteed versus what's not guaranteed with summer funding or additional years of research funding. And yeah, all very, very helpful information. And it seems like sometimes the best way to get that information is to have a recent graduate student that can share with you, right, how the funding system works in that particular university, so you can have a sense of realistically what's negotiable, and how things operate in there. But I hope many of our attendees at the conference find themselves in a similar situation as Yatunde, where you have more than one offer and you can play them against each other. I uh, um, or just get what you deserve and get a little bit and get a little bit more. Wonderful. So, Ifeoma, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your graduate student story?
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's so glad to be here. I'm sorry I came in a bit late. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm Ifoma Aneke, a PhD student. I'm going to my third year at the University of Florida, Gainesville. Yeah, I'm in the history department. And a little bit about my graduate school story and how I got in. Well, I don't know if I should use the generalization that I'm just like every other Nigerian student who just finished undergraduate and waiting on NYSC and looking for the way forward, because that was exactly my own experience. So towards the end of my undergraduate studies, the year was in 2021, right? Yeah. So I had some friends who were already in the US doing their masters. And then I spoke to one at the end of my final year, and he was like, "Oh, you can, work for me as a research assistant." So I'm like, "Okay, sure." And then I did this little research assistant work for him. And after that, I reached out back to him again. I'm like, "I'm interested in this graduate school you guys are doing." Honestly, from the start, I was not really so interested because I had other plans I had for my life, but haven't done the work for him. I just got the spark that, oh, I really like what I'm doing with this work. Okay, let me ask further questions. I asked him questions. He was like, sure, I could guide you through it. And then he tutored me on what to do, what not to do. And because he was already late, that was late January of 2022. So I'm like, okay, let me just apply to the school the guy was in and see how it goes. And I submitted my application. What I had then was just my first year to my third year transcript. And fortunately, the school gave me an admission without funding. It was for a master's. I am like, okay, at least this is the first trial. I'll give another trial. And then during the course of my NYSC in 2023, I applied this time with the mindset like, okay, I think I want to push further. If I could get an admission with just my transcript from first year to my third year, I'm sure I could do better. So I did put in my energy and then I applied to more schools. And the first one that gave me admission without funding, it was for a master, so I just let it be. So I just went ahead to do fresh application and I wanted to do something different, which was something I like, that is medical history, history of medicine. So I did throw in those applications. Honestly, it wasn't easy. It was tough because the rejection came. Those who are going to apply, there's going to be a lot of, rejections. There were days I cried, and the one I could remember clearly was January 30th, 2023. I got 3 rejections that day, and I cried so bad. I cried so bad, yeah. So luckily, Emory University came through, placed me on hold on waiting list. I was like, okay, if Emory can put me on, waiting list, then chances are some other school might put me on waiting list and I might get into one. And that was how we kept going. The University of Florida finally came. When he came, initially, University of Florida, when he came, it didn't come with a funding yet. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to do a PhD without funding? So I reached out to the my own advisor, which is the woman I'm working with at the moment. And I told her, I said, is there an alternative way to get funding in the department? And she was like, she's not sure. And I'm like, oh, the Center of African Studies, do they have funding? Can they fund while be readmitted into Center of African Study? And she was like, no, she's not yet sure about that, but I should ask the graduate coordinator. I'm like, okay, no problem. Then I wrote to the graduate coordinator. When I wrote to him, he was like, oh no, for now, we don't have funding, but let's see how it goes. And surprisingly, the next day, less than 24 hours, I got an email, oh yeah, we actually have funding. And I'm like, thank you. So what I kept telling myself was, maybe if I never pushed forward, they probably would have just let it slide, right? And thank God I actually pushed forward. And, the idea came with some of the people I spoke to, were like, just ask, if there are alternative means of, getting this funding. So I don't know, for people out there who want to apply, I'll just say keep pushing, keep asking questions. One thing I keep saying about myself is I'm someone who is very resilient and determined. If I want something, I go for it. I don't stop. So that's like what I would describe myself with. And my experience in graduate school, it's been good. It's been tough. It's just been both. So you just definitely have to be indifferent about everything as you keep going.
Yeah, wonderful. And it feels so important that both you, Ifeoma, and Yetunde had these experiences of asking questions, requesting more, and asserting yourselves. And I think that probably cannot be stressed enough that number one, it's okay to do in this process. But number two, that university bureaucracies aren't always proactive in and of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it might be necessary to really be proactive and assertive in, oh, I'm interested, but you haven't given me funding. So there has to be something there has to be some options and really sniffing those out and pursuing them. Thank you so much, Ifeoma, for sharing that story. Um, Bankole, do you want to share a bit about your experience?
Sure. Yeah. So, and I'm not sure if you can see me. I am currently at the conference at present, but the network is a bit glitchy. But I'll
We
just,
can see
can
you.
you
We
hear
can
me?
see you.
Oh, you can see me.
We
Oh,
can hear
okay.
you. We can see you.
Okay, perfect. So, I my decision to pursue grad school in the US was first by through an encouragement by a professor. So I had the first degree in English, a master's in English here at the University of Lagos. So I had already proceeded to my PhD in Unilag, and I just walked into one of my professor's office, and then she was like, "I'm not expecting you to be in the country. Apply, just apply, apply." And reluctantly, I just so that it doesn't seem as though someone believes in you and then you're not at least making the move. And then I did apply. But then while I was applying, during that process, I was already uncomfortable with my current state as an intellectual. My curiosity had already expanded, and I thought that, okay, if I would apply to the US, then I think I want to become an interdisciplinary scholar. And then I thought about, okay, where could I apply to that would enable me to bring my scholarship in literary studies and the new phase of life. And then African studies was it for me. And then I said, okay, I have no background in African studies. How about I just start over in that sense? So I applied for a master's in African and African diaspora studies. And I, of course, like Ifeoma said, I was rejected a couple of times. And, I was, in fact, I had already decided that, okay, yes, I was going to move to the Institute of African Studies here in Unilag to just begin my PhD over there. And when I was about, the same day I was about to walk into the office of the dean there, the director rather, I just received an email from Florida International University that congratulations, you've been admitted into the master's program in African and African diaspora studies. In fact, what came first was the funding, and I was like, you gave me funding without admission. What's up? Then I emailed them, and then the admission, official admission came in, and then that was it. And then I said, okay, we move. And then I left for the US. So I moved to the US first to do a master's. And then along the line, I found where I really wanted to be, which was in anthropology. And because of the interdisciplinary nature of African and African diaspora studies, I was exposed to anthropology, and I saw anthropology as being in between the humanities and the social sciences. So that was it for me. And so when during my master's, I was applying for the PhD because I didn't want to have any break, so it doesn't affect my status as an immigrant in the US. So I started applying while I was writing graduate papers. It was hectic for me, but then I still did it. And then I applied to 6 schools. I was gladly rejected by 4. And one thing that I did was that, which was also what I would call an audacious move. So I did not apply to African and African diaspora studies for the PhD. Neither did I apply to English. I applied to anthropology, straightforward. I had no experience in anthropology, nothing. I just applied. I had my idea, and then I pushed my idea to them, and then I was rejected by 4 schools, and I was waiting for 2 schools, Florida International University and University of Kentucky. Then Kentucky emailed me, and so Kentucky delayed a bit, and then FIU. So when I check, because being a student in FIU, so I just had to check my portal consistently, and then I saw under review and all of that. But then Kentucky and Florida International University came at the same time, right? So this was where, just like Yetunde said, there was a negotiation. For me, it was both. It was more, first, it was intellectual negotiation, and also it was financial. Intellectual in the sense that, it was during that period, I was thinking that, okay, yes, I want to be an Africanist scholar. I want to study, I want to do my research in African studies. But then I checked Kentucky, and I was like, the faculty there, right? And of course, the funding, I checked it. Okay, it's a 9-month funding. Okay, I thought about that. Then I looked at Florida. I was already working with my professor who is in anthropology. And we've been doing we've been doing some work together. And then I think what really did it for me was, while I was in the process of making the decision, I just received Professor Adebito's message on LinkedIn. Alaye, I saw that you're in Florida. Can we talk? And then I was like, okay. And then he told me that he was moving to Florida. At that point, I said, yes, I know what to do. And then that was why I decided to stay in Florida. Yes, because I knew that Professor Adebito is an Africanist scholar, well versed in my research, even though he's not an anthropologist. And I knew that my anthropology scholar was also open to working with co-supervision. So that was a negotiation I made with the professors. And of course, in terms of the finance, Florida pays all through the year. They pay in summer also. So I just wanted to be, I wanted to just have that negotiation, even though, of course, housing is something else in Florida, right? But that was it for me. And then the fact that I was having Professor Adebita come over to Florida International University, and my anthropology professor willing to work as co-supervision was what informed my decision because I didn't want a situation where I'll be doing research in Africa and Nigeria, and I wanted someone who could really mentor me within the context of doing field work in Africa, in Nigeria, right? And of course, I did not have prior experience as an anthropologist. So I knew that my professor in anthropology would offer me the methods and things around it, while Prof would give me that on the ground experience. So that was what informed my stay at Florida International University. And of course, here I am.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful story. We kind of have a theme. We have multiple themes running across a number of you. But I feel like Yatunde, you kind of also mentioned having to decide what field to be in, having interest in multiple fields, and kind of being encouraged to stick in education because that was where more of your experience was. Whereas Bankole ended up finding success going into anthropology for the first time. And I think both knowing about both of those possibilities is really important. I actually, when I applied, I had a master's in media studies and I wanted to go into sociology or geography. Um, but I had the most success in a media studies, getting the best offer and the best intellectual environment for what I wanted to do. So thank you, Bankole, also for reminding us your negotiation isn't just about the finances. It's also about where do you see yourself doing your best work? Where do you feel like people see you and the value in the work that you bring. But folks might find that their master's degree is or them seem like viable applicants. Oh, I know this person can do anthropology because they have a master's in anthropology, but it is also possible to convince departments that even when you haven't studied something before, you belong in that department. Both things can happen. So I'm really glad that we have that story as well for doesn't mean that a particular department can't be a home a home for you and your research. It's still possible. So Umar, do you want to share a bit about your experience?
Yeah, of course. It was 2018. I graduated from Usman Danfodio University in Sokoto. That's like in northern Nigeria, core north. And I graduated actually with a first class. And it was the first time in 33 years that anyone has ever gotten that class of degree in that department. So the news went viral, and many people were reaching out, as potential mentors, wanting to mentor me to go into um, master's or PhD programs in the UK or in the US. And I met someone who actually linked me up with another person who was a graduate student in the United States. And they both ignited my passion to study in the United States. But at that very point, I wasn't actually so interested in living because I've had a couple of glitches family-wise. I lost a parent, and I wasn't in the best state of mind at that moment. And um, but they kept pushing me, and I decided to apply in 2019. I wrote GRE and TOEFL. I got some good scores, but I ended up applying only to one school, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I got rejected. And because I wasn't really interested right from the beginning, so I just kept that aside. I enrolled into a master's program at Bayero University, Kano, and I joined a career in conflict journalism, and I kept pushing both ways. But at some point, I was becoming tired of journalism on a personal level, and with my master's at Bayero University, ASU strike, the strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria was was continuously obstructing me. There was a time we had a strike for over a year, nothing was going on, and that was after COVID. That was after we had almost a year of COVID, and it was becoming tough, and I felt I should just apply for graduate school again. And yeah, it was quite tough for me combining, my master's program, uh, having to write at least four different, um, newspaper articles within a month, and writing, um, investigative articles include conducting the research, organizing your thoughts and doing the writing itself. And I was also, um, preparing my statement of purpose, looking for prospective advisors in the United States, and doing all of those things together. It was quite tough, and some of the people who were mentoring me were pushing me to apply for seven, eight, or even 10 schools. I ended up applying to only three: Northwestern University, um, Columbia, and Princeton. I was rejected from Princeton. Columbia expressed interest in my application. I had a couple of email exchange between me and my prospective advisor. They were interested in what I was doing, but they felt they had more competitive candidates fill in their quota for the cohort for that year. That was 2023. So instead, they offered a master's with partial funding. But because I got into Northwestern, I thought um, I was in a good place, and I didn't have to accept the master's offer at Columbia. I mean, even if I had gotten full funding from both Princeton and Columbia, I would still go to Northwestern because not because of the finances. I assume Princeton will have better stipend and all of that, but Northwestern has the I'm not even flattering my school. Northwestern has the best Africana collection in the world, and especially um, the Herskovits Library has the best collection on Northern Nigeria. Like, there are certain, material that you will not find even in the region in the north today, but you find them at Northwestern. So I felt it was the perfect fit for me, and I was also excited, with the prospect of working with my present advisor. So I ended up at Northwestern. This is my story in brief.
Beautiful. Yeah, thanks. So an additional detail in that, things that can help you do your best work, and for historians or others doing archival work, what does my library have? Can be a big could be a big factor. But it also sounds like, no, it was really clear this is an institution where I can do the work I want to do, and that's a really strong factor. Um, Great. So we're a little bit more than halfway through our session, and I do want to make sure that we take time to. Did you want to jump in, Abisola?
Oh no, I just wanted to unmute myself in case.
Okay. So we're a little bit over halfway through, and I want to make sure we do save at least, the last 20 minutes or so for questions from our audience. So I think what would be helpful would be to kind of go through the bullet points, but just have one of you take each of them as we go through, to make sure that we address as much as possible. from the program. I'm wondering if anyone wants to speak about GRE, the graduate record examination, and TOEFL, or the English as a foreign language experience. Can anyone share? Um, I'm
I
not
think,
sure how extensively GREs are being required now for master's and PhD. I'm pretty sure almost when I applied, so this would have been around 2011. Almost all schools were requiring them, but I think that's changed quite a bit in the years since. I don't do PhD admissions. I only have undergraduates where I am, so I'm not in the mix at the moment.
well, I could jump in. I could talk about application fee waiver. And I'm going to just talk about it very quickly so the others too can chime in. For application fee waiver in my school, and I think it happens also in so many other universities. If you are able, in my school, if you're able to attend the sneak peek, that's some kind of event that they have just at the beginning of the admission or application season. If you are able to attend that program virtually, because I did, that gave me automatic waiver. So, like everyone has been saying, that in case you are thinking of applying to many universities and you are thinking of how do I want to avoid these application fees, that is something that you might look into. And sometimes if you reach out to the director of graduate studies in the university that you're applying to, they can also waive these application fee for you. So it goes back to the idea of emailing, asking questions, negotiating for yourself. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Any comments about the GRE? Um, did everybody take the GRE in applying for their PhD?
Um, I would say no. For me, technically, I didn't write GRE, neither did I write so far. But what I did was, because of my undergraduate degree, which is English and International Studies and English and Literary Studies. So there is a way okay, so I graduated from combined arts, that's what we call it in UNN. So it's history and English. So I kind of emphasized on when I was writing my SOP that I had English and it was really indicated on my transcript. So like phonetics, comprehensions, grammars, and all of that. Those courses I took as an undergraduate that I had on my transcript. So I emphasized on it that I had these courses because I did history and English. So maybe that was what I used. Probably that exempted me, but I didn't write anything. And I think in the course of time, most schools really don't even pay attention to this whole English exam anymore. They don't really focus on it these days. You just have to kind of demonstrate your strengths while you're writing your SOP. Again, in addition to the application fee, she talked about for University of Florida, my department did not waive application fee. We had to pay. And I think every other person who applied before me or after me still had to pay application fee at the University of Florida. And it's quite affordable. It's $30. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I can quickly talk about GRE. As I mentioned earlier, I've written GRE, both GRE and TOEFL in 2019 when I was applying. Um, it's been many years since then, so I don't recall everything. But yeah, as everybody has mentioned, GRE is mostly waived now in most schools, except maybe if you're applying for STEM courses. There are certain STEM courses that still require GRE. And maybe if you are coming from a francophone country where um, people are mostly, instructed in French or other languages, languages, I mean, other than English. But for the GRE, I think the most important thing is preparation. Um, and you need to start early. I remember when I took the GRE, the standard advice was to start preparing like 6 months ahead of time. And um, that preparation has to be really intensive because the GRE is is a really hard nut to crack. I can tell that, especially the quantitative reasoning aspect of it. I think there are three different aspects of it. There is the verbal, was it verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and
Writing
um,
and
not
writing.
writing.
Oh,
No,
Yeah, analytical writing.
um, analytical. Yes,
mm,
and I think for me, because I'm a non-STEM student and I basically love mathematics. Because of that, I had my worst results from the quantitative reasoning, but um, my verbal and analytical reasonings were quite good. And but the good thing also is that in the humanities and social sciences, if you have good scores in your verbal and analytical reasoning, you are good to go. They don't really press hard on quantitative reasoning. So, and the ETS, which is the organization that administers GRE, they have this um, on their official website. They provide like previous questions, and they also provide like key to those questions, the answers to the questions. And those documents are really useful and helpful because if you study them very well, it is very likely that you'll pass the exams. And there are also prep courses that are administered all over Nigeria. Um, you know, especially in the past years, I know, there are certain um, tutors who organize courses just to prepare people for GRE and TOEFL. And yeah, so you, if you can, you should take those courses and just keep practicing regularly, like practice every day. And the final thing I will mention, when people talk about applying to graduate school, we mostly talk about how much people need to invest their time and, energy into it. But we hardly talk about the financial investment. If you have to write GRE or TOEFL, you need to invest, a lot of money into it. And yeah, there are schools also, like if I mentioned, that do not waive application fee. You will have to pay that, processing visa and all of those things require finances. And especially for Nigerian students who are just finishing their undergrad or maybe their masters in Nigeria, unless if they have, parents who are doing well financially, it could be really challenging to um, settle all of these financial obligations. Yeah.
great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So a lot of folks have mentioned the statement of purpose or the SOP, and I'm wondering if we could get some reflections on writing your statement of purpose, as well as your writing sample. So maybe the overall kind of application package, but I think that the real meat of it is that, right, that statement of purpose, essay, and your research sample. What does it mean for both of those to be? How do we get them to the stage that they need to be a competitive candidate, and to be representative of what we want to accomplish in graduate school and what we're capable of? Anyone want to share reflections on the statement of purpose, or the writing sample?
I can go. Uh, for statement of purpose, I think most of my applications for masters, they didn't request writing sample, but they did for my PhD. However, my strategy is always like Umar said, always planning ahead. And I think maybe just writing in beats. But beyond writing in beats is sharing with people to give me feedback. And when I share, I'm always like, see, this is my naked writing. This is my vomit. Give me the feedback. I like critique me. But one thing is thinking about the components. And what I try to do is, I like using this framing, use their word against them, whereby I go to the department that I'm looking at, check the professors and everything, that their work aligns with mine. After having conversations with them and they want me, then I tailor some of the things using some quote from their website or from the professor's work to align with what I'm writing, and also connecting it back to what I have done and also thinking about my future. I think for me, it seems a bit challenging and easier in the sense that I'm only just writing stories of what I have done and just wanting to build on it. So that way it feels sort of easier, but the structure was what I needed more feedback on. Like, okay, what should come first? Do you want to sell yourself first? Or do you want to talk about your research first? So I needed feedback from people to put some of those pieces together. And as much as I want to try to tell my authentic story, I also was really careful of not representing my country in a deficit way. That is very, very important to me. Because at times we review application and people talk about like, oh, it is ghetto, it is this, it is that, and everything. I never said all those in my story. I was bringing more of the asset base. Like, these are the things I have done. This is what I'm bringing to your space. This is what I've taught in Nigeria. This is what I'm bringing. You also, because you said you have done this in your school, this will help me, and we can like more of collaborative way. So that's how I presented. And maybe just wanting to add one thing too is thinking about all the application packets is also saying, okay, yes, we're going to waive this for you, like the GRE or anything. But there are times that they say it makes you more competitive. While I understand I was coming from the place of privilege, not because I'm financially buoyant while in Nigeria, but because I've been in the system. So I felt like, oh, I can always afford the GRE fee and do it. Even if they say they are waiving it, but I feel like it adds to me being competitive. And that goes to, I think I wrote TOEFL 3 times, 2 in Nigeria, which was paid for, even though I did English education. Oh my God. The 2 in Nigeria was paid for because I was coming for Fulbright, but when I got to the US, I had to do one again before going for master's. Then I did the GRE. It was a lot. But to still put myself there and make the application stronger when I was applying for PhD, because of COVID, there was no center to do TOEFL, and I had to do Duolingo, and it was proctored in the room, in my apartment. While they wanted to waive it, yes, my own goal is, again, preparedness meets opportunity. Just to like, okay, I want to be more competitive. Again, I understand those are coming from a place of privilege, but I just felt like, well, I'm just going to do it. And that's what I did to just get myself ready for that. I also wanted to mention about the preparedness because I know I was coming to this panel. MSU, I think it's their MBA or one of the programs, they were organizing the information session last week, and I intentionally attended. One thing I took away from there, yes, Abisola said it, they gave the waiver, but they were also saying, yes, to be competitive, we can waive the GRE, but to be competitive, we encourage you to do the GRE. They specifically say that. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, seems really helpful. Even when something's waived, it might still benefit you to do it. And I think you also gave us some really helpful thinking about a statement of purpose, where just because it's first person and it's autobiographical doesn't mean we win um, by making a fantasy story about hardship or pandering to research I I I know experience, I have these ambitions, and here's how they align. We're looking for persuasiveness that's based in careful research about what an institution actually has and can all be tied to intellectual autobiography from Yetunde. Um, the writing sample, I'll just mention that I mean, I don't think I would have been successful as a PhD candidate without my master's degree because my master's thesis was my writing sample, right? It can be difficult, to have a piece of scholarly writing, um, although again, I think Yetunde's advice is, I mean, you need people looking at your stuff, and certainly people who are successful with writing samples just from their undergraduate experience that they develop and polish. But it seems like the important factor there would be you really need other eyes on the research sample that you're going to submit to make sure it's up to the standard that you would want it to be. Any other comments about research samples um, for applications? Does anybody have anything they really want to emphasize about having a
Yeah, maybe especially for those applying to history programs, it's really important to demonstrate two important things in your writing sample. One, to demonstrate your ability to use primary sources competently, and second, to demonstrate that your analytical, your expertise in analytical reasoning. So I'm stating this specifically against, the kind of general background, you know, in the way students are taught how to write in history programs in Nigeria, because it's more tailored towards, the British system, which emphasize empiricism, this positivist way of writing history, in which you just get the data and start narrating. So especially when you are going to America, it has to be deeply analytical, and you also have to demonstrate competence in using primary sources. And if you can, you should demonstrate competence in using not just the colonial archive, but other sources of reconstructing history. Yeah.
Great. And mentioning that's a good transition. Mentioning the British versus an American system. One thing on our bulletin points is sort of like the PhD timeline. Something specific about the US model is that basically every PhD involves coursework. Um, Sometimes as much as three. I don't know that I know anyone who's done 3 years. Um, did you? Are you doing 3 years of coursework? No, 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 no. Okay. Um, right, because in a British model, you basically start your supervised thesis research right away. I don't know about Australia. Others can chime in if you've got other information, but it's generally a 5 to 6 year timeline that moves from um, coursework to qualifying exams, which are going to be structured specifically by departmental norms. How sometimes they're serious. Sometimes they're really serious. Sometimes they're less serious. Supervised reading lists and written examinations. Usually a proposal period where you're working on your thesis proposal, maybe in a workshop with your cohort, as well as your advisors, and getting that approved and defending your prospectus. Before moving on to your actual research and and writing and then and defense and obviously it's very very much conditioned on your own methodology as well as the methodological norms of your department. In anthropology, if there's significant field work, I mean, anthropologists, I feel like some anthropologists routinely take 8 years, 10 years. In the past, it's been, um, but you're unfunded at that point. Um, uh, um, if you're doing significant archival research, that's going to affect your, your timeline and how you move that time. But I just wanted to, well, we're starting to run a little bit low on time. We just have about 20 minutes left. So I'd love to give our panelists, before we open to questions from the audience, the opportunity to kind of add anything you'd like from the program that maybe we haven't gotten to. Adjusting to a new academic culture seems quite important. Your field work and external funding, as well as thinking about writing and transitioning towards the job market. Those are the bullet points that we haven't yet gotten to. And I'd love to invite anyone to address any of those, so we can try and wrap and move to some audience questions.
Hi, so I think I can speak to the coursework, qualifying exams, and reading concentration. And I think I'm going to address it together with adjusting to a new academic culture. Yeah, so of course, it was aside being used to the academic culture in Nigeria, moving to the US was not just about, it wasn't as though I was going back to the US to study English. I was studying a whole different course. So it was a lot because I was moving from the humanities to the social sciences per se. So I had to do extra work. I had to read extra books. It was more like I schooled myself in line with what I was being taught. So for instance, if we are having if there's a class on anthropological theories, for instance, and we're talking about Boas, Malinowski's and the rest, even though I know them and some of their theories have been relevant in literary studies, I go back to study them within the context of anthropology and how I can now begin to understand them within the context of how my current intellectual leanings. So that was extra work for me. And in terms of concentration, I can say that being in the academic environment in the US sort of like automatically puts you in that position to concentrate. There's this ready I don't want to use the word pressure, but I'm going to use the word pressure safely, right? It pressures you to work, right? Because you have to keep going, you have to keep working, you have to keep moving. So it helped. It helped a lot. So my course, I did my coursework for 2 years. It was about taking the courses and also schooling myself. So this is for someone who and I like to tell people that because I've had presents talk to me about, yes, I want to study abroad, but I want to study something different. And I don't know how I'm going to navigate it. You really can. It's going to be hectic. It's going to take a lot, but you really can do it. And I am maybe I can also talk about external funding. And why I'm going to talk about it is because it's in line with the kind of rigor that I approached my scholarship. So anthropology was new to me, and then I put in the work, and then after that, after my exam, I said I was going to apply for an external funding, and then you know I'm reading this book. The professor is in. So luckily for me, it was written by an anthropologist. So I sort of like worked within the same timeline. And then when I saw, apply for the Wenner Grant, apply for ACLS, being competitive, external fundings. I said, okay, let me just try. ACLS, I discovered late, the winner grant. I said, I'm just going to try one. And then I applied for the winner grant. I had imposter syndrome. I was scared. But I just want, in my belief, I was like, nobody's going to arrest me for trying, right? Let me just try. And then I'm going to, if it's a no, I would receive, I'm going to try again, right? And then I applied, and then I got the winner grant.
Rose.
So it was, I would say, aside the fact that I got the grant, it was a huge validation for me as an anthropologist who had a background in English literature, a background in African and African diaspora studies, ending up getting the winner grant was a huge validation. And all of these came as a result of first the decision to, while being taught in school, I taught myself again to become the kind of anthropologist that I wanted to be in that sense. So all of this, it's a trajectory. One effort and one determination leads to another, and it helps you become the person you want to be. So I tell people, you can decide to do anything. That is one thing the studying in America helps you to do. You can choose to decide. You can have a background in history, and the next thing you want to go into journalism or something else. You just have it in mind that it will take a lot of rigor, it will take a lot of effort, it will take a lot of work. You'll be stressed emotionally, psychologically, but you would eventually get it. So I think that's, yeah.
Thank you. So we should probably transition. I do want to flag that if we have the time or anyone wants to speak to it as we do Q&A, it might be valuable to just reflect a little bit about the experience of being an international student in the United States and some of the stressors that are tied to political instability and visa related madness. It's stressful enough to be a graduate student, in my opinion. And these are compounding stressors. I mentioned to Abisola, one question is to what extent we find the international student services offices helpful, to what extent other kinds of community contacts might be helpful. It's something that maybe we can reflect on, or I just wanted to make sure it was mentioned, make sure our audience is aware that it's something really important to reflect upon and discuss. So yeah, we have 14 minutes left. And I think it'd be great to shift into some questions from the audience, either in person or online. Do we have any questions in the room?
There is a question in the comment section in the Q&A.
Yeah, I see that one. If folks would like to address that. So the question from Deborah is, what's the best advice you can give towards navigating the statement of purpose and research proposal to stand out as an applicant? One thing I will say quickly, I was thinking about this with Bankole talking about the winter grant. Um, Anytime I'm advising someone about applying to a grant or funding, the best thing you can do is get someone who's been successful at that particular thing. So if you could read a statement of purpose from a recently accepted graduate student at the department where you're applying, to me, that's the best evidence of what it takes to persuade that group of people. It's not always possible, but that's my first answer to that question. What does that institution consider compelling and convincing? Do others want to take that question?
Yeah, I do have no more comments. Thank you so much for the panelists for your contributions and your views about graduate application in the US. So my name is David Olusanjo, and I'm a third year PhD student or candidate at Florida International University. Perhaps just a few contributions so it can help people in person that they have a number of questions that they want to ask. So about first, thank you to all the panelists again. I mean, I've learned so much in your section. So I'm just passionate about students applying for grad application, particularly the international students. So my first contribution is about the GRE of TOEFL. For instance, like, I'm speaking from an exam perspective. I mean, I applied to a number of schools. I applied to about 30 schools. And for a Nigerian, if you want to apply to many schools in the US, I think like GRE or TOEFL matters. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I mean, my name is David Olusanjo. I'm a first year PhD candidate in Florida International University, FIU. Just to give a brief information about graduate application to the US. I mean, I just want to make a few comments that will help interpret possibly the options for application in the US. First about the GRE or TOEFL. For instance, they have the low, just want to encourage you to provide GRE or TOEFL, you can afford it. It's about $2.7 for the GRE and not for the TOEFL. But if you have a low CGPA in your undergrad, for instance, maybe third class or two, then you know I have a third class and if you want to apply to graduate schools in the US, I think I will encourage you to write a GRE or TOEFL. But if you have like maybe two or third class, perhaps you can enhance your chances of getting to the US. So please don't run away from the GRE. Try to write it no matter your score. Perhaps you can complement for your low undergraduate CGPA. And also, like, there are some associations that sponsor GRE or TOEFL in the US. I mean, if you have like a Taiwo scholarship that is currently open, so you can look out for that. If you have a good undergraduate CGPA, College of Education USA, they have like they sponsor your GRE, TOEFL, you're like from start to the end of your application, the stuff that you need. They sponsor everything, so you can look out for that. If you have like on a good undergraduate CGPA, you could have ASI scholarship. They sponsor your application fee, the standardized test score, and everything that you need. Also, just for the GRE again, there's a lot of resources on YouTube that you can use if you can't afford to go for like tutorials or so. There are a number of resources on YouTube that you can use that will like support your preparations like for the GRE or TOEFL, and also for like applying to like for waivers. Of course, definitely I agree with all the previous speakers because applying to speak the US is so expensive and given the Nigerian situation, so we can there's previous way you can use to apply. You don't have money. So for instance, you can like probably like attend various session for the schools. They have like an orientation session on how encourage students to apply. Then during the session, you can just ask them personally that, okay, I'm in Nigeria, just explain your current situation to them that you want to apply, but because of financial resources, they can't really apply. So perhaps they can waive the application for you. So don't let money discourage you to apply for your dream schools in the US. And also just a brief information about the SOP. That means the statement of purpose. Just example is about your past, your current, and also your future. Your past, your present, and your future. Just explain, align 10 stories together. So that's what SOP is all about. And just lastly about the writing sample. So don't let that scare you away, like, oh, writing sample, another publications, or like, so don't let that discourage you. If you are written on that, if you are writing a thesis or like, projects in doing undergrad, you have a writing sample. Just reduce it to about 10 to 15 pages. Just like a brief information on your introduction to chapter 5. So just like take the useful information from me, then combine it together. So just about 10 to 15 pages there, you can use that as your writing sample. So don't let that discourage you. Oh, I don't have publications. I'm not good at writing. So those are just useful information I want to contribute. So just to encourage you. And also lastly, as my parting word, your age is not your discouragement. So don't say I'm old, I can't go to graduate school again. You have people like 40 years, 50 years that are still in graduate school. So thank you so much. That is my short contribution.
Thank you, David. Yes, great. Are there other questions in the chat, or I see a hand behind you, David.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I really want to appreciate the panelists for the wonderful delivery. My question is, could you please enunciate in maybe just simple terms the guidelines to apply for master's program, especially, and perhaps PhD? You have all mentioned a lot of things, but I found it jam-packed. I could not really outline it in order of importance. Could you please do that in simple terms? Thank you.
Should we take all the questions?
Yeah.
Don't worry.
My question is, how important is securing a potential advisor in the application process, and what do those advisors look out for in a cold email? Because sometimes some persons say it's not so important to have a potential advisor before applying. Others say it's important. So I wanted to hear from you who are already in it. How important is it? And what do these advisors look out for in a cold email that will get them interested in your work and working with you? Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish that we had that's a great question. I wish that we had folks who are on PhD admitting committees on the panel to answer that, in terms of what gets their attention. Because you never know. You do never know. But I think being thoughtful in how you craft that email, I have a sentence that says, I'm really interested in the work you've done about street life in West Africa. I am also developing a project about street life in this. I'm using you, Bankole, as to spitball. Connecting your own ideas to their experience, and being concise, but also trying to give that compact sort of elevator pitch that stimulates interest in what you're in what you're doing. Um, uh, uh, I don't think that contact is make or break for your applications. And in fact, I think that some PhD admitting committees might even have a policy of trying not to engage with folks who do cold emailing, not because they're not interested in you, but because for how they try to regulate their process, they don't they try to avoid favoritism. So yep. Any other thoughts on that? Do we have more questions? We're collecting more questions.
Yes, please. I would like to answer the question regarding the, sort of like an itemized stage, right, or phase of the application, right? So the first one, like Yetunde would say, start early, prepare very early. And what do you prepare for, right? So the first one, you have schools. Look for the school. Look for what you want to study. It's on Google, right? How I started with African and African diaspora, master studies in African and African diaspora studies in the United States. And I had a list. Then I clicked on each of those schools. And the next thing I did was I checked the application process. After that, I checked the faculty. Are there faculty members whose research aligns with mine? And then that was what I did. And then I created a spreadsheet and I itemized these things and I wrote them down to down to application fees, right? So you itemize all of this. You get when you open the university portal, you look for the application process, you will get the detail there in terms of writing sample, what should be the length. Because yes, David said some schools would say 15 pages, some would say 25 pages. So you really need to know the dynamics of the university you're applying to. Then when you get that detail, right, then you know the application deadlines. So you can prepare for that. And then you write your exams, necessary exam, be it TOEFL, be it GRE, and all of that. And then after that, now, like Ben said, some universities don't want you to reach out to what's it called, to faculty members. You just apply directly. Yes. So, but for some you can, and of course, personally, I'm a fan of give it a try. So the highest you will get is you will not get a response. So you will get your answer from there. Maybe faculty members, of course, do not want that. You understand? But for those that can respond, yes, you have their response. For those who would not respond, you move on, right? But the fact that they do not respond does not stop you from applying. You should still apply, despite the response from faculty members or not. And also, sometimes we have the mindset of the fact that a faculty member responded is a green light, no and no. That doesn't mean you have a green light from the university. A faculty may be so enthusiastic about your work, but the faculty is so restricted to a faculty, maybe except in the sciences, but in the humanities and the social sciences, I don't think a faculty has the automatic prerogative to admit a student. Do you understand? So that's something you must know and you must have in mind. And then your writing sample, like they would say, I suggest you give people these documents, right? And what Ben said is very important. So for the Wenner grade, I asked somebody to go through my work. If a previous recipient of the Wenner grade went through my work and then before I submitted it. So yes, you need to read someone's work, writing sample, statement of purpose to really be able to understand how to structure your work. So, and yes, and then you apply and then you wait and all the best.
Okay, thank you very much. I have just two questions. The first one is, will you advise someone to accept an application without enough funding, admission without enough funding? Will you advise a prospective applicant to accept admission without enough funding? Secondly, how can you relate the Trump factor we have right now? Will it affect prospective applicants now? Presently, Trump is, bringing about a lot of changes. Do you think it will affect application or applicants' interest now? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I know we're basically at time, but I think these are two maybe important questions to conclude on if we can go a minute or two over. So the question is inadequate funding, not no funding, because I don't think anyone should do a PhD that's unfunded. I would advise you not to do an unfunded PhD, but that's a little bit different from one that might say, here's 19 or 22,000 USD, which is not a livable wage, but might be something. Does anyone want to take that real quick? The question about PhDs, the PhD funding being less than you need.
Well, I would say it depends
Well,
on the
okay.
student. Oh, okay.
No, you can go on. You can go
Oh,
on.
thanks. I would say it depends on the student. And Ben, you've already said it. You shouldn't do a PhD that you are funding fully, right? Yeah. I I will speak from my own perspective. Even if it's partially funded, I wouldn't do it. Why is that? I'm a mom of two and I'm in grad school, right? And like they said at the beginning, as moms, we have to negotiate, especially because now we have other people to take care of. So sometimes I say if you come from Nigeria to the United States without funding, it's like going from fry pan to fire, right? So don't do that to yourself. If it is partially funded, it depends on you. If you come from a very wealthy home and it's something you can afford, yes. Even if you can fully fund yourself from a wealthy home, great. But as an average person, no, no, no. For me, it is from fry pan to fire to come to the US without funding. Yeah. Okay, so I think I will stop there.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry,
sorry, we
I
have to
just
end this session now. We have another panel that is coming up soon, so we have to end this session now. I'm so sorry. So you can continue the conversation on emails, you can meet up and send an email to any of the panelists if you have any question. So we have to end this session now. Thank you so much to all the panelists for your contributions and your views. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. It's wonderful to meet you all.
Thanks.
Abisola, oh, I need your email, Abisola.
Yes, I will.
We are working on an edited volume about student parent model scholars. If you are interested, maybe if I have your email. Although the call ended 2 days ago, but
you can create space for me. I've already sent you an email. I'm going to find you. Yeah, abisola.akinshiku@ku.edu.
I will forward
I'm going to reach out to you on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Oh, I am very terrible with LinkedIn.
Oh, thank God I did not. Bye-bye.